Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to an early morning live stream. I have been here in the comic book room since about 5:45 this morning, responding to messages, comments, emails, direct messages, and also working on some videos in the background for you guys. And there were a couple of messages that have come in over the last few days where people are asking for my opinion on the new CGC label that was announced. I think it was on the 12th of this month. I think that is when I was notified that they had released this thing. No, it was actually July 12th. July 12th, they announced a new CGC pedigree label that has been released. And some folks have been asking, whether I've seen it, what my thoughts were on it, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to talk a little bit about what this label is, what Pedigree Collections are at a high level, and share with you my thoughts on it. And, there's a reason why I don't talk about certain things, but we'll get into it in just a couple of moments. First, let me say hello and good morning to some comic book swojas that have joined me early morning here in the room. Kyler is in the house, my friend. It is good to see you. Chris Barrett is here. The army of Chris's is in the house. Kingpin Comics is here. JD is here. How you doing, my friend? It is good to see you. Chris is like, I love these pedigree labels. They are slick. Eli is in here. Good morning, Eli. I think this is the first time that I've seen your name. Welcome to the live stream, my friend. It is good to see you. Is CGC finally announcing an adult? Oh, I got to be careful reading the comments from that dude. JD, how you doing, brother? It's good to have you here because I think you do have some pedigree comics in your collection. And so I'm going to need some assistance from you as we go through this thing ever so gingerly, so as to not offend. The Greek is in the house. How you doing? Harvey Abel is in the house. Good morning, Gibbon Gang. How you doing? Comic book hustler. He says, I'm interrupting college game day. My bad, my friend. It's good morning to you, though. Leo is in the house. How you doing, my friend? Scrolling down through some of the names. Nicholas, how you doing? Welcome to the live stream, my friend. Thank you. Good to be here. Closet Geek, aka Vika, is in the house. How you doing, my man? All right, so we are going to spend just a little bit of time talking about the CGC black labels that were announced a few months ago. I guess it was July 12th is when I received the notice, and I don't know if you guys have seen this thing, but I want to actually show it to you real quick here. See if I can share my screen so I can show you what these pedigree labels actually look like. So hopefully you guys can actually see this thing. That is them. That is them right there. And again, you can see here that it was released on 7/12/2019. So CGC announces a new pedigree label and newly recognized collections. So these are the labels, and they are slick. It's a black and white label, which I think is pretty sexy, right? To some degree or another, it kind of puts the focus on the actual book instead of the label itself by it mostly being a white label with some black trim. I think that it really is a beautiful label, right? But the truth of the matter is, I will probably never own one of these. That is just being completely honest. I will probably never, ever actually own a single one of those pedigree labels. So here's the thing, Pedigree Comics, and JD may help me out on this because I think you have a lot more expertise in this than I do, my friend. So I'm going to be paying attention to your comments here. The Pedigree collection is a collection that has been kept in pristine condition, typically by a single owner, right? A single owner. And these pedigree collections can be a couple of books all the way up to thousands of books that are kept in just immaculate condition. And oftentimes what you'll find is that these owners of these books have like signed their name or made some kind of notation on those comics, like you would back in the day, right? When you lend a friend a book, you write your name in the front flap. It's kind of that same kind of thing. And to my knowledge, there are 59 recognized pedigree collections by CGC. So there may be more out there, right? But CGC has basically identified and recognized 59 of these Pedigree collections. And so let me pop this thing back open. Are these some of these details in here? Let me see if some of these details are in here. A pedigree, this is what they say. A pedigree is considered when a collection of vintage books in high grade condition is introduced to the collector's market by the original owner. Many pedigree collections were recognized and accepted by the hobby before CGC came into existence. And so CGC is excited to basically, in the press release, they actually announced 5 new collections that are on their recognized list. And it brings the total number to 59 pedigree collections, which I talked about a hot second ago. So let's pop over. We're going to take a quick look if we can. Let's see what they put up here in terms of what these pedigree collections actually are. So hopefully you guys can actually see. Yep, you can see that. All right, so here they actually talk about some of these things. They talk about what the label looks like. It's applied to any comic book that is part of a CGC recognized pedigree collection. And then they show some examples of these pedigree collections. You can see here like the Aurora with this little symbol here. The Big Apple. A lot of times these collections are actually named after the locations in which they are found. So Chicago, Carson City, Bowling Green, Circle 8, right? Literally. And then it's based upon what they actually see, which is an 8 in a circle. So that is the Circle 8 collection. But these are basically the recognized pedigree collections that are out there that CGC recognizes and will give one of these fantastic labels to. And again, I think this is great, right? One of my struggles with pedigree comics is that they tend, in my estimation, they tend to be expensive, right? So you already have a gorgeous comic, right? That is high grade. And then it's even more expensive because it's a pedigree. So again, I don't think I would personally ever be in a position to own one. At least I don't think, because for me, part of it is I want the best possible book that I can afford. It doesn't necessarily have to be a pedigree comic. And so I don't know. Chris, it is too early to have you in here, my friend. It's too early, Chris. It is. Nicholas, no, Nicholas is like, I have a ton of pedigree modern comic books, all prestige, all 9.9s and above. Yeah, that does not count at all. Mr. Comic is in here. Matt Forge is in here. It's good to see you guys. Yeah, so basically a pedigree collection is basically a high grade vintage collection that has been kept in pristine condition that CGC has recognized and deemed it as such. And so they even say in there, hey, if you have a vintage pedigree or if you have a vintage collection that you think worthy of a pedigree designation, they actually encourage people to reach out to have a conversation to figure out whether that collection will be recognized. Now, here's one thing that I did not, that wasn't quite clear to me. It says, let me see if I can find it here. What I don't know is whether if you have a pedigree book, whether you can send that book in yourself to actually get the black label. It wasn't clear whether individuals that own pedigree books, not the collection, but books from Pedigree could send those in for the black label versus the owner of the collection having to send those books in to get the black label. That was one of the things that wasn't quite clear to me. I'm scrolling here. I'm trying to see if I can find it here. Yeah, these new labels will be applied to books submitted as a CGC recognized pedigree through the online submission. The first available show considers. Yeah, that wasn't clear to me. My assumption is that if you own these books, you can actually send them in to get this black label, or if you own the collection, you can send them in and get it. But again, I don't know that I would ever own these things. I think that the black labels are really, really gorgeous. I mean, just being completely honest, but I am not necessarily a fan of the special labels. And that's part of the reason why you haven't heard me speak about them before, whether it is a black label for Pedigree or whether it's the Iron Man or Spider-Man or Avengers or Incredible Hulk logos, labels that you can get for an extra $5. I'm personally not a fan of those things. It's an extra $5 or whatever it is. And I think grading comics is already expensive enough. And so I personally don't choose to give extra money for a specific label. And on the flip side, I'm not going to pay more because someone has opted to put a special label on a comic. I'm not going to pay more for an Amazing Spider-Man book because it has a photo of Spider-Man in the label, right? That book will be priced in my mind at the value based upon the grade of that book, not because you paid an extra $5. And to me, it's just that slippery slope of, are people collecting the comics because of the labels, or are they collecting the comics because of the comics themselves? And will people start to assign and subscribe to some intrinsic value to special labels versus just the book itself? And I'm kind of setting the black labels to the side. I set the black labels to the side because that's pedigree stuff. That is different than just an Iron Man logo or label or something like that. So today is a very unusual day because I am up early doing this live stream. And what's unusual is that my family never sleeps in. And this morning they have actually slept in. And as I've been talking over this last 1 minute, my son has now walked in the room and is going to make his way onto camera. Say good morning, buddy. Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Good.
All right. Hey, can you go back out with mom for me until I finish? Watch the court. Watch the court. All right. So that's what happens when you do a live stream early morning with young children. They just walk in and interrupt because they can do that. So let me scroll up and see some of the comments here, because I know that I've been going on for a little bit. There has to be a TJ Watson pedigree. Now, I would actually buy one of those if I could be deemed so worthy enough to actually get one. Yeah, I don't get the point of a pedigree books if it was a 9.8. Yeah, I mean, and some of these books actually might be in great condition. And there are people that actually love pedigree comics. And I think a pedigree comic is, I put it in the same vein as like a Mark Jewelers insert, like a rare newsstand. These are nuances to the collection that some people gravitate towards, right? And I think it's cool. If you want to buy pedigree, I think it's cool. I am not a pedigree guy. That is not a motivator for me to buy one book versus another, right? But to each his own. And I think that's one of the great things about this hobby, is that there is enough differentiation, there's enough variety out there for all of us to find a sweet spot for ourselves to be able to dig into these books. So I'm scrolling down through some of the comments here. You may already have one. Some high quality older pedigree books have been sold and out there in the wild. Yeah. And I mean, but the thing about it is that typically my assumption is that people make a big deal out of that, right? If someone is selling a pedigree book and they find value in that and they were able to get it, they're probably going to try to sell that value to the next person. And I don't know if that book is just going to, just become another book, right? Especially if the previous owner was one that cultivated and cherished this collection. I don't know that it's randomly going to get out there without some kind of designation or some kind of mention. So scrolling down through some of the comments, seeing what else is in here. Yeah, I mean, and for some people it does, but the same way that some people will pay extra for a newsstand. Some people will pay extra for a Mark Jewelers insert. I am not one of those people, right? I see them all as being the same, but that is Reggie's personal preference. And so I want to preface my comments with that it's Reggie's personal preference. It is not what I'm saying you should do. You're going to have to decide what it is. So here, do you consider a pedigree CGC book to be worth more than a normal blue label? Both are the same grade. I do not. When I look at a comic, I am looking at, okay, what is the grade? What is the FMV? I don't care in my mind whether it's a newsstand or a Mark Jewelers insert or any other kind of insert or pedigree or a blue label. I am evaluating that book based upon the grade. And truthfully, doesn't matter whether it's raw or graded. I am going to make a decision based upon the condition or the grade that is actually on that book. To me, they're all the same. Good morning, brother. It's good to see you, my friend. Felix is in the house. How you doing, my friend? Scrolling down through some of the comments here, seeing what folks are saying. Here you go. So yes, you may have to prove by dealer. Yep, there you go. I'm scrolling through some of the comments here. Brother, here's the thing. If I can afford an AF-15, I'm going to take it in any way that I can get it. Raw, graded, label or no label. I am going to try to just get the best possible comic that I can get. And the reality is that I think that the labels are cool, right? Whether if you're talking about some of these like the Iron Man, the Hulk, the Avengers, the Spider-Man labels, the labels are cool. Don't get me wrong. I am not paying an extra $5 for the label when I send books to CGC, and I'm not going to give a seller extra money because they opted to spend an additional $5 on that label. That's the point that I'm making. To me, a comic is a comic. It is a comic is a comic. I'm not going to pay extra because it has a special label. I can't do it. So otherwise it would be, yeah, I think you guys are having a little conversation there, which I think is great. So let me scroll down. Eddie White, good morning to you, my friend. And here you go, stepping into a gimmick territory. And here's the thing is that CGC, CBC, not CGC. So CGC, and some of its affiliates, this is kind of sort of what they do. I think they've done it with coins where they introduced these team specific coin labels that you can get. So let's say you had and I'm making this up because I don't know anything about coins. You had a Susan B. Anthony $50, right? And you could actually get it where it has a Tigers, the baseball team, the Tigers label on it. And then what I hear is that some people would basically have two Susan B. Anthony $50. And the one that had the Tiger label on it, for example, would suddenly be worth more than the one that did not. But they're the exact same coin, exact same grade, but because one has a Tiger logo or label, it's more expensive. I don't want to see that happen with comics. And I don't want to see that happen. There is already enough nuanced differences that affect the value of comics that I don't want it to be about the label. And so this is one of those things that I'm just not going to get on board with. I'm just not going to do it. So scrolling down, Daz, good morning to you, my friend. Scrolling down through some of the comments here. I think I'm a little behind. A kid rolled in here with bad head and everything else saying good morning. Love that little guy. He is, you guys are going to hear a little bit about him and my daughter in an upcoming vlog that I finished recording and editing this morning. So yeah, that is what one of my nuggets looks like. Thank you guys. I definitely appreciate that. He is an awesome kid. Scrolling down here, is John on yet? If John is on, I'm going to drop. But my guess, I don't think John's typically on until like 8:30 or something like that. So scrolling down through some of the comments here, JD, who is a guy that likes Pedigree comics. I've watched a lot of JD's videos here on YouTube, and he likes Pedigrees, and I think it's fantastic that he likes them. It's just, you know, I can't get on board. So here, let me recap this for some of the folks that are coming in here. The Pedigrees are basically high-end vintage collections that have been cultivated typically by a single owner. And so there are 59 CGC recognized pedigree collections that are out there. And these are basically, you know, where someone has basically maintained an immaculate comic book collection, right? Where I can't remember the guy's name. It's like Lee Kirby Ditko, something like that on YouTube. Pristine collections where you see, you know, Amazing Spider-Man #1 at like 9.6, 9.8, just crispy white, gorgeous book after book after book, full runs of books in immaculate condition, right? That is a pedigree collection. And truthfully, a pedigree collection can be a couple of books or it can be thousands of books, but typically they are in pristine condition. And I'll try to show this screen one more time. There are basically 59 or so CGC recognized pedigree collections that are out there. And a lot of times these pedigree collections are actually recognized by the area in which they come from, or there is some kind of physical characteristic or something like that. So you have like a circle 8 because whoever owned this collection actually put the number 8 and circled it. It became the circle 8. Then you have some that are named after people, right? So you see Don and Maggie Thompson over here. You see Edgar Church, Mile High. And what's interesting about this is that this collection actually wasn't the first. I think this collection led to pedigree term. It is not the oldest collection, but I think it is one of the earliest, if not the first, recognized collections where people were like, that is so special. That collection is so special that we have to identify it as something else, i.e., pedigree, right? But you can see like Gainesville, I'm guessing it's like Gainesville, Florida, Kansas City, right? Some of them are named after people. Some of them are named after a location. You have Palo Alto, which is not too far from me. You have Pennsylvania, et cetera, et cetera. But there are 59, and this is the one JD was just talking about. There are 59 recognized pedigree collections that are out there. And so here's Western PN, surfaced in the 90s. Much of this collection's history is shrouded in mystery. We know that both a father and his son accumulated the collection from the 60s to the 80s, and there was allegations of a cache of golden age comics, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see some of the details, and I think that's what's great about this. If you go to cgccomics.com/resources, I think you should be able to find additional details on these great pedigree collections. But here's the thing is, so let's say that you have one of these collections, you have one of these books, you basically have the ability to get what CGC is calling a pedigree label. And this is a black and white label that is applied to a pedigree comic. And it's a gorgeous label. It's a gorgeous label, and only books that are submitted and affiliated with one of these 59 recognized pedigree collections is eligible to actually get that particular label. Otherwise, you get something else. So I'm scrolling down through some of the comments here, and I think it's one of those things, man, that it's either you get it or you don't, right? You get it or you don't, and I don't necessarily get it, and that's okay. That is actually okay. So Jerry P is like, thanks for addressing this, brother. Have 2 pedigree comics out of a 1,500 comic collection. Bought for the books. Pedigree was just tagged on. We'll seek out Mark Julio's variants if the price is right. There you go. And I definitely respect that. If I could get a pedigree book and it's not expensive and it's like in my price range of a book that I was already going to buy, but I'm not going to pay the extra money. You guys are super silly in the morning. Super silly people. Bret Hart's like, can my Power of X that just came out 2 weeks ago, can that be a pedigree? Scrolling up. So JD, what's a file copy? I could probably look it up and I could probably guess, but can you type in what a file copy is, please? Just so we can continue adding to the dialogue. Tina, thank you for stopping by. See you soon. Scrolling up through some of the comments here. Reginald McGinty, how you doing, my friend? Good to see you. I am drinking a little bit of coffee right here. And collecting gains. Pedigree collection will probably become scrolling down, waiting for JD, waiting for my man JD if he's still in here. Here you go. So usually pedigree books are kept in higher grade or higher quality, and their grades are higher than the general public. So pedigree books are sought after because they are usually nicer. Well said. And that niceness, right, also comes with typically a big price tag, And so I think, again, I'm not necessarily playing in those waters. Not always playing in those waters. Oh, this dude just named a collection. Daryl just named a collection after himself. I don't think it works that way, Daryl. It doesn't. How you doing, Armando? Good morning to you, my friend. What is this? Reggie, you can use my Patreon contribution for the Spider-Man image on the label. No, I won't. Brother, I just spent your contribution this morning when I basically upgraded the podcast platform, right? Because I was on the free Podbean platform up until this morning, and I actually switched over to the paid, where I actually now have more space to be able to release more podcast episodes, and that's a couple of bucks a month, right? So I basically paid for the entire year up front, so now the cost is a little bit lower, but I went ahead and paid for that this morning, and what it will allow me to do is to continue uploading additional content as podcasts. And I'm hoping to actually release some of those interviews that I did with CGC earlier this year via the podcast. And I don't know whether the sound quality is going to be there because these were live streams. We occasionally had technical glitches, but I think that some of the content in those interviews with CGC were so rich that I want to go ahead and release them out there for folks. And my hope is that that the sound quality is there for people. So we're gonna release those again via the podcast, hopefully sometime soon. So El Rock 007 says, I made a live show, need to buy a lottery ticket. Welcome to the live stream, my friend. Scrolling down through some of the comments here. Let me see if JD hit me back. He may have popped. So he said, oh, here we go. So JD made a comment here earlier about the Gainesville, I guess, pedigree being mostly file copies. And so I asked him to define file copy. And I think I knew the answer, but I wanted to make sure. He says original copies that were held by the publishers themselves. So part of the reason that pedigree is so nice is because it was in the possession of Marvel or whoever published that book. Because it's like anything else, right? When a publisher produces something, they hold copies back for themselves as like reference points, reference documents, or whatever it happens to be. And so this collection, the Gainesville collection, is comprised mostly of file comics that were probably never ever read. They were printed, they were collected, and then they were probably dropped in some kind of warehouse where they were temperature controlled and all that good stuff. One of the things I haven't quite figured out, to be honest with you, is some of these older collections, like back in the day, how people were able to maintain them in such pristine condition. You know what I'm saying? And so it's one of those things where you have to imagine that the person that bought the book, that maintained it, had to be like an adult, that was buying these collections and just took care of them, right? And it just goes to that thing of comics haven't always been just for children, right? Because there's no way you have a pedigree collection if a grown person didn't like buy that book and maintain that book. I struggle with that, with a child, right? Being able to do it, but interesting. So, Marvel Joe, how you doing, my friend? I have been up since 5:30 this morning. I got up early this morning and I came immediately with a cup of coffee in hand to the comic book room to do some editing, to respond to a bunch of emails, direct messages, comments on videos. So I knocked a lot of that stuff out. And much to my surprise, my family was still sleeping, which they never sleep in. So I decided to go live really quick to talk about something that has been coming up a couple of times in messages, that being these Black Label Pedigree labels from CGC. So yeah, there you go. Brandon's like, I just checked out Lee Kirby Ditko. If you guys haven't seen this dude's collection, treat yourself. Treat yourself to something. Check this dude's collection out. And I think it's actually the dad. I think the dad had the collection and now the son has it. And it is a gorgeous collection. And if memory serves, they have this comic book reading room. Oh my goodness. It is the stuff that dreams are made of. It really is. So shout out to you, Brandon, for pulling that out, brother. And I can never remember the name, but I know it's always like great creators and I never quite remember the name. So thank you for that. So here you go. So welcome to the live stream. We have a Russian subscriber. Welcome to the live stream. We are international, y'all. We are international. Reginald saying in 20 to 30 years, the Nicolas Cage collection will be big money. I think I just actually saw someone that owns a comic book shop in LA that posted up a photo of Nicolas Cage's Bentley outside of their comic shop because he was actually in there buying some things. And again, it just goes to the point that these pedigree collections are not accidental, right? You have to, in my opinion, you have to have some money to be able to buy these things, to be able to maintain these things long term. So scrolling down, here you go. So Comic Book Hunters pointed out that a ton of Dale Gold's key files recently hit eBay, kept by the publisher in-house for reference material. There you go. So scrolling down, I don't know that it's a year so much as they defined it as vintage. What I would say is if you have questions, you might want to Google it because I don't want to give you wrong or incorrect information. I could just make some stuff up. It'll sound really good and it could be completely wrong. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. So scrolling down through some of the comments here. So here we go. JD is making a comment here that sometimes the file copies, which we were talking about a second ago, are actually the first printed copies as well. Many gold age publishers, i.e. Harvey files. Very good. I'm glad. JD is my man. JD and I have been friends for a very long time on this Instagram thing, Instagram and YouTube thing. So it's definitely good to see him in here dropping some knowledge on this, because he owns Pedigree and he knows a lot about Pedigree. Let me restate. This dude knows a lot about a lot of stuff, of which Pedigree comics are part of it. So there you go. Chris, thank you for stopping by, brother. It was good to see you. We appreciate you hanging out for a little bit. There's a question here about how many ASM comics do you have? A lot. So I have right now, I'm looking at 4 short boxes right now that are comprised of Amazing Spider-Man 316 through 801 over here. And then I have a ton of low number Amazing Spider-Man elsewhere, right? So you're basically 1 through 315 are held in plastic bins behind me there. So I have a lot of Amazing Spider-Man comics. I would probably venture that I have the vast majority of the entire run, 1 through 801, already here in the room right now. So scrolling down, but yeah, so here, I mean, Man Cave Comics is making a point here. He says the only Pedigree worth paying more for than you would normally pay is Mile High, such a legendary story. So there you go. And again, that is he is putting some additional nuances on it. I personally am not going to buy any Pedigree comics because I don't think that I could afford them. And his comment is he thinks that because of the story behind the Mile High collection, that is a Pedigree that is worth paying additional money for. And again, I think this is one of the great things about this hobby is that it's not my thing. It might not be your thing, but it's somebody's thing. And I think that is what makes it work, right? Everyone has a thing, and I think it's perfectly fine. Scrolling down through some of the comments here, seeing what else you guys are talking about. Marvel Joe, you trying to make me look bad? Marvel Joe's been up since 4 a.m. He's trying to make me look bad because I got up at 5:30. Here you go. SoCal X, how you doing? He says he's been up since 3:30 a.m. for work, opening up and made himself a cup of coffee. Now he's relaxing, watching the channel. Well, thank you, brother. I definitely appreciate that. I am having a cup of coffee. Myself. This is my second cup right now. So scrolling down, scrolling. Here we go. If you can afford the Maybach, then get the Maybach. But if you're going to treat it like a general public, look for 4 wheels and low miles. Sorry about that. Scrolling down through some of the comments. Jilly Jill is in the house. How you doing? It's good to see all you guys. Good morning. Walker from Canada. How you doing, my friend? And yes, JD does know his stuff. I'm gonna tell you. So as I made the transition from scripted videos back in the day to like more free form videos where I tried to add some additional content and texture to my stuff, I would actually reach out to JD and be like, JD, so what's the truth? I would be like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Does this make sense? JD is a fantastic guy and a great member of this comic book community that has helped me personally in so many ways. So I definitely dig the dude. He's an awesome guy. Isaac, how you doing, my friend? Good morning to you. Good morning to you. All right. So if that question is directed at me, the answer would be no, because I don't buy omnibus. I don't buy trades. I'm a floppy guy. I buy floppy comics. I don't do any omnibus trade journals or any of that other kind of stuff. So, so yeah, there is actually some information on that Pedigree page that I showed a little while ago where you can actually reach out to CGC. So if you have a collection that you think deemed worthy of a Pedigree label, you can actually reach out to them to have your collection be recognized by them. And my guess is that if you have a book in your collection and you're curious as to if it is a Pedigree, what I would do is I would definitely check the 59 recognized CGC Pedigree collections to see whether there are some markings or something else that would help you to identify that book yourself. And when in doubt, I would always reach out to CGC. I think the email address is cgcsubmissions@cgccomics.com. I think that, no, it is submissions@cgccomics.com. Probably reach out to them to have a conversation and see what's up. So, all right. So it looks like John is going to go live. So I'm actually going to wrap this thing up out of respect. I want to give him and his children the space that they need to make some magic happen. So with that, I'm going to wrap this thing up. Hopefully I was able to answer most of the questions that folks actually had. And again, you guys always know this. If you do have additional questions, put them in the comment section. I'll try to reply back to you. Then you can always send me an email at RegieCollects on Instagram. A message at RegieCollects on Instagram or RegieCollects@gmail.com to ask me any questions that you have. I am always happy to help folks out. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you and good morning to everyone. Hopefully, if you are here in the US, you have a fantastic long weekend, and we will probably be going live again on Sunday night at 7:30 p.m. where I'm actually going to be giving away this book right here. So definitely stay tuned for the Ready, Set, Go preview show on Sunday night at 7:30. With that, I am out of here. It is good to see all of you guys.